fuzzy. Hey guys, it's Austin here from Fuzzy Builds. Today we're going to build a waterfall cabinet. I have made a bold claim on my thumbnail as my waterfall cabinet is better than Cam's waterfall table from Blacktail Studios. I'll get into that shortly, but first I'd like to get through a couple things. Number one, if you were just showing up to my channel for the first time, thank you very much, definitely appreciate it. And consider hitting that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. That would make a huge difference. If you're returning, thank you as well. But more than just that, I have a day job, so it takes me a lot longer to get out any videos, as well as my projects take me about 50% longer than they should. So thanks for understanding and sticking with me as I continue on my journey of freedom from a day job. Now, 10 months ago, I had a client reach out to me. Now, client, I mean my partner's friends. They saw one of my woodworking projects, and to be honest, I think maybe they took a little bit of pity on me and thought, hey, let's give this guy a hand. Over the course of a few days, we had a few different discussions about what they were looking for, what ideas they wanted, that sort of stuff, options, things like that. And at the end, they settled on a waterfall cabinet. As someone who had never done one, and I had no idea really how to even begin, I said, yeah, sure, sign me up. I mean, how hard could it be? While I was working on the project, though, Cam from Blacktail Studios dropped his video of his waterfall table he did. So I thought to myself, this might be a fun adventure, and see what you all think, and if I could beat his build. Now, let's start out by saying he has had considerably longer time working on these types of projects, but even with that being said, I still think mine's better. However, I'll let you guys decide. Now, I started this channel back in 2021 to kind of do all, build whatever I want, and show you folks and kind of see what you guys think. However, that seems to have morphed into mostly a woodworking channel. However, my most viewed video isn't woodworking at all. As of making this video, I have a staggering 125 subscribers, and thank you to each and every one of you. Now, I have some lofty goals. First and foremost, I need to hit the 1,000 mark. I need to get 1,000 subscribers for anything to ever materialize into anything. One of my lofty goals is to quit my day job, because at the end of the day, if I can do this, then it's way better than having a day job. One of my other lofty goals is to get 1 million subscribers, but I'm a long ways off from that. But here's to hoping, right? You may notice as I'm cutting these boards that there's already a cut in the wood. There is a simple reason for this, as black walnut is tough to cut, and it's always under load, torque, pressure, kinetic energy. I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but it's always has pressure inside the wood, and as you cut it, if you cut it all right away, you are most likely going to pinch the blade and stop the cut, and then you're fighting with it for the next 20 minutes to try and free up your blade. So I've included some of the mold making process for the waterfall cabinet just to kind of illustrate a little bit as to the effort it takes to build yourself what you want. I have basic rough dimensions set up. If you look at the board there, it's got lines written on it. I had everything all measured out as to how I wanted it before I did the pour. What better way to get the exact measurement you need than use one board as your reference point? I thought this was a great way to do it. But when you get into some of the longer pieces, it is a little bit more challenging and probably not recommended. Now, with that being said, it probably would have been a better option to have actually stuck them together. Maybe clamping them would have been a good option. As you see here in a little bit, I accidentally made a little minor boo-boo. I ended up cutting twice and measuring once, which is clearly counterproductive to what you probably should be doing. I was attempting to do the same technique, however, the boards being as long as they are doesn't make it very conducive to doing that, especially when you don't have a support underneath the far side. So yeah, we're going to do an awesome thing here. We're going to measure once, and then we are going to cut it twice, because that makes perfect sense. Yeah, no, not quite good enough. Yeah, let's cut this again. All right, let's take my boards and realize that I am short. Yep, clearly I do not know what measurements I have. I think it was half an inch out, 3/4 of an inch out. Yeah, that was awesome. Take a second to clearly see how badly I messed up, and there you go. Ah, simple fix. We'll just put another board in and add one on the back side. Seems like a logical thing. Not a horribly complex fix, but a fix nonetheless. Got the job done. Right back on schedule. Throw in a couple screws. On a couple being 4, then you're good to go. Fix this all up with a little bit of tuck tape. Got it all in there. Nothing a good piece of tuck tape and a pencil can't fix. Look at that, eh? Oh, pencil. Seems fairly self-explanatory. See, this is where I thought was really fun and unique. All those pencil drawings all nicely line up to the boards that I want. Perfect. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? I materialized out of nowhere just to put in this other piece. And looking good. Okay, now we'll move on to the pour. So all the marks you see are me doing my math to ensure that I pour enough of the epoxy into it so that we're not stuck having too much or not enough epoxy. Right here I am doing all the prep work to ensure that we get less bubbles, I guess, if you will. So coating all the surfaces with epoxy, letting it dry, then roughing up the whole entire surface all the way down to ensure that good adhesion maybe, to the epoxy when it is poured. Same with the other one. Don't worry, I won't take too long to do this because my gosh, that would be boring as hell. There we go. Flip it over, do the other side. And Bob's your uncle. So we just let those dry. Once they've dried and we've scuffed up the surface, put them in the mold. So according to my math, it is going to be 3 gallons to get all the stuff necessary to pour this mold. As I orate the video, I find myself rather distracted at times because I get, well, sucked into the video. This here is just some black epoxy pigment that I bought at the local wood store. I don't know if it's very effective or not, but I had to do this several times of adding more and more pigment in order to get the consistency that I liked. It is the pigment that I have always used, and it seems to work just fine. Just took a fair amount of it to get what I wanted. And started the pour. So, just so you're aware, I had taken and left the epoxy in the bucket for probably a good 20 minutes and popped as many of the bubbles as I possibly could before I poured it in here. Take the brush down both sides just to kind of release any bubbles that had got clung to the side there. Okay, so I had a few minor issues with the epoxy coming through, but it wasn't enough to warrant me to reinvent the wheel while it was curing. I added the aluminum side supports just for support. I don't know if it was really necessary, but that's what I did. Pouring this, I learned a valuable lesson when doing epoxy pours. I highly recommend you use tape, the tuck tape type stuff, for the whole entire thing, not just the corners and edges, as you will see here very shortly. That nothing seems to want to come off of the board that I had sprayed twice with epoxy mold release. Such a fun time. So Cam at Blacktail Studios claims to be a average, mediocre, not a great woodworker. And I think at this point, he can't really claim that anymore. He's done some pretty fascinating and elaborate builds. So I don't think you should buy into anything he says about the fact that he's an average or mediocre woodworker. I mean, gee, I think I'm average or mediocre. Except for when I take molds apart, because I'm just an amateur when it comes to that, as you can see. Eventually, I do manage to pull it apart. It is such a glorious, fun, enjoyable experience when everything is stuck to your piece that you're working on. This is my experience with mold release. So much fun. It was stuck as stuck could possibly be. It was almost like it looked like I didn't even spray any mold release on it. My solution, router. I built a couple skis off the bottom of my router, and that seemed to work out pretty good. However, it was a long, time-consuming, and very messy job. So I ended up taking it to a place in the city where I live, and they planed the top and the bottom and gave it back to me. And then I spent the next little while getting it to this stage. Just setting up my marks for where I need to cut for the top of the cabinet. A little bit of zing zing. Cut this off here. Now I'm taping off the outside of the epoxy just so that when I sand it, I'm not sanding into the wood. I think I went through from 1000 grit all the way up to 2000 grit. And I think it's a nice semi-gloss look. Now you may have noticed earlier I did not have this saw. And for good reason, because earlier in this build I did not have this saw. However, I felt as though I was going to need it for this particular cut. And I'm sure I probably could have done it with the other saw, but I wanted to be precise considering what it cost for me to purchase all the materials for this particular job. I had tried to make a dowel jig in order to do this particular job, but after several hours of fighting and screaming and stuff, I honestly went to the store, bought this, and a half an hour later, all the holes were done on both sides, pins in and ready to go. It was a very, very nice treat. Myself. Oh. Now it's time to set up clamping, and I just affixed that with a little bit of CA glue, some painter's tape, and some activator. It's not too hard of a job to do. Roughly get your same distance on either side so you're not putting extra tension or less tension on one board or the other. And I just ended up using the old board that I had that I cut off, or the piece that I cut off, and worked out just nice. Got that all on there. Do a clampy here and a clampy there, and make sure all your clamps are all good to go, and you're sitting at 90 degrees or 45, yeah, 90 degrees, and you're good. More clamps are better than less clamps. There we go. That's everything all good to go. I taped my joint in order to remove any of the excess spill or squish or squeeze out, more squeeze out. So I made sure that was all taped so I could avoid squeeze out issues. If you guys would like to see the video of the cabinet being built, let me know. I really didn't go into much detail as far as the holes and getting all the holes drilled. I figure most of you know how to get the holes drilled. That is just a Craig, I don't know, alignment tool. So I use that to make sure I got all my holes straight up and down. I just affixed some CA glue onto the inserts and then just tighten them down. Slid the cabinet in place and bolted everything up just to make sure that everything worked the way it should. Now on to final sanding. And now I'm just setting up where I'm going to cut my feet in, making sure they're marked where I need them. Once that was completed, I used a Forstner bit to set up and get my holes drilled. I used a brad point drill bit with my Craig jig and then cut my inserts, my 3/8 inserts, put them in and threaded in my feet, and looks really nice and clean. I ended up doing some last minute sanding and little bits of repairs due to divots and stuff from the wood. Now I decided to cut a chamfer all the way around, and then that happened. A little bit of swearing going on. I ended up using some of the scrap from the original project. I had a little bit longer lengths, so I decided to use that. I didn't have all of the footage for this. I don't know what happened to it. There is a first initial inlay in there, and it didn't quite finish all the challenges that I was facing, so I redid a portion of it there and put this new one in, and it seemed to work out real nicely. You know, I saw Blacktail Studios do this, and I thought, how is this even possible to get this done in a manner in which is clean, easy, no stress, that sort of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is still a little bit of stress, but it's a far easier doing an inlay than I thought it was. Just a little bit of effort, and yeah, all done tickety-boo. Cards are important to put underneath the piece that you're cutting. You don't want to mark up the piece you've been working on for the last umpteen months. Then I grabbed my cabinet maker's block plane to kind of finish this off real nicely, and then throw in the sanding there, get the bottom all done. It looks nice and clean with only a little minor discoloration on the bottom, but that's the end result. Looks pretty good. The other one was very similar. And now we're at our final finish on the home stretch. So if you've made it this far, thanks for taking the time to watch it this far. Definitely appreciate it. And if you've made it this far, consider doing the like and subscribe and all that sort of stuff, but only if you felt you got some value out of this video. Now, we're getting very close to the statement that I made in the beginning that my cabinet is better than Blacktail Studios' table. Despite the length of time it took me to build this cabinet, I really had a great time doing it. There was a lot involved. It was a really wild learning experience. There were so many elements of this that I had never experienced before, including the inserts there that you see on the bottom. Those were a challenge to do. It took me a while to figure out the process and get it all done. Just finishing up a few odds and sods here. I got to turn this over and do a minor fix up right here. And once this thing's fixed up, I just got to put the stain on the top. get a final sand of these little areas out of the way, and then work on getting this top done. I thought this top looked beautiful. Turned out great. Okay, now time to deal with the elephant in the room and why I think that my cabinet is a better build than Cam's from Blacktail Studios. First off, he's got way more experience at this than I do, and even though he had never done one before either, because he has so much more experience at it than I am, I think I win on that account. First off. Second of all, mine has functionality compared to his. His is a table. Mine does have a tabling surface. Mine has a cabinet attached to it, which I think wins on that account. However, I will give him the point for his efforts in sanding the epoxy on that table. It was beautiful. It was a mirror shine. I don't think I could have had the patience to do that, even though I had attempted to get up to 2,000 grit sandpaper. I don't think I won on that one. I think he really took the cake on that, and so he gets the point there. However, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. You take a look and see if his is better than mine, based on all the stuff that's involved. Okay, folks, here's the final couple seconds left before we get to see the big reveal. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And here's the final pictures of the project. So you let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell notification in order to see more of this. After you see the few here, you will see what it looks like in the client's house. Thank you guys for watching. It was much appreciated. Take care and all the best.